pro-government demonstrators and anti-government protesters, and then gunfire broke out in one section of that, but we don't know as yet who was firing.
Yeah, that's the very difficult thing. No one is wearing any kind of uniform or anything to distinguish themselves as to say which side they are on. So it's very hard to tell who was firing at whom, who fired the first shot, in fact. And at one point, when I was speaking to you earlier, when we saw these people surging towards us, it was very difficult to tell which side they were from as well. But nevertheless, it was a face-off between pro and anti-government protesters. Anti-government protesters had camped out earlier in the day outside a government building that houses ballot boxes, trying to stop them to get to polling stations. Then we saw pro-government supporters arriving, and in effect there was a kind of no man's land that was created, Fionnuala, as this huge stretch of what looks like a highway, a 7-lane series of roads that was just completely empty. One end had anti-government supporters, protesters. The other had pro-government supporters at it. The police tried to stop them from reaching one another, and that's the point when the gun battle broke out. Our producer... We managed to retreat from the area. Our producer almost got caught in the crossfire, so she hunkered down. The next thing she knew, she was next to a couple of gunmen. And let me explain why it's so difficult to distinguish who these people were. Very close up, we've been looking at some of the footage she's managed to film, which we hope to bring to you shortly. These people are masked, and they're hiding their weapons under plastic bags or towels. So certainly if you're standing quite a way away from them, you really can't tell whether they're even holding a weapon, and that's what made it all very scary for everyone who was there, very confusing to work out what exactly was going on. And this battle, this gun battle, went on for at least an hour, and that's the point where we decided to leave the area and get our producer out of that area once she managed to escape from being trapped by these gunmen. Fionnuala?
And the question here is that the anti-government demonstrators are in a minority. They're against these elections that are snap elections tomorrow. They draw support from different parts of the country, as indeed do the pro-government demonstrators. So here's my question. The election isn't going to resolve anything at all, but how much is the potential for violence that you've seen on the streets of Bangkok today potentially replicated across the country?
Well, this is the big question for tonight, and we've been trying to speak to the National Security Chief to push him for an answer as to what he feels the situation is around the country. Certainly we know that security personnel are on standby, and that is not just police, by the way. There are other security teams. We saw military intelligence as well asking people questions earlier today, and the military themselves, soldiers also on standby. They were certainly deployed this evening as this gun battle ensued. And there is concern about the violence that might break out elsewhere, but particularly, just to make clear, Bangkok is a hotspot for violence, because this is where the majority of the anti-government protesters have congregated, and this is where those potentials for the two to meet and for clashes to break out is most likely. So Bangkok certainly on alert this tonight. Thailand's already under a state of emergency, and it's not yet clear how perhaps the military, who so far managed to stay away from this, not to step in or take any further action, or the police or the protesters who are involved in this, in fact, will react tonight after the scenes we saw earlier, Fionnuala. But there's huge concern about what might happen, and whether this election really is going to be able to go ahead. What will happen tomorrow, that Sunday in Bangkok, when polls open?
That is one of the many big questions, and again, you mentioned the military there and whether they will be dragged into all of this as the violence continues. For the moment, Simon Mawson in Bangkok, thank you.